Hey everybody, Viktor here, and today, as per Martin's request, we have a Sarig Yogir guide. Now before I get into the guide itself, there is something I want to say, and that is, just like before, I have put in the description links to helpless people of Ukraine. I ask that if you are at all capable of doing so, to please donate to help the Ukrainian people, whether that is through food, or medical care, or hygienic care, or getting civilians out of the war zone, or supporting the Ukrainian army directly so they can survive this as a nation. It's entirely up to you, I don't care, but please, if you can, donate to help them get through this. But with that all being said, let's get started in the guide itself. First off, this is not a no restart guide. At the end of the day, there are some alliances that can end up breaking your game. So I just wanted to point that out up front, and I'll explain what they are once I get to that point. But let's go ahead and begin. Now, as is usual with my guides, the best place to start is, of course, with the estates and privileges. Now, since you are a step horde, that means you're only going to have the tribe's estate, so privileges is fairly easy. So the first three privileges you're going to be granting. You're going to have the larger tribal hosts, which gives you 20% more manpower in exchange for 5% less loyalty, so that's an amazing deal, so of course you're going to grant it. Next, you have the greater autonomy for chieftains. This will give you loyalty, and that's really all it's good for. And then lastly, we have tribe land rights. While this does give you the governing capacity, you're not going to need that for a while. What this is really doing is, since you're starting off with 30% you can seize land, you're balancing out the 30%, and you're getting the 5% loyalty that you need to naturally drift above 50%. The reason why you namely want to do this is because there is a diet mission, as you can see here, where you have to get your independence from Ming. Which means you're not going to be doing that anytime soon. So this will let you keep seizing land if you need to without summoning the diet. Lastly, there is one other privilege with the tribes you're going to want to grant eventually, and that is this, guaranteed leadership of host. You need to have 15 army tradition to sacrifice, but this will help you get more generals cheaper and also give you a lower army tradition decay, which long term will definitely benefit you in smashing your opponents. So once you have the ability to grant this, grant it. Long term, it's beneficial to you. But with that, your estates and privileges are done. Now let's talk diplomacy. Now before you even unpause the game, you need to go to Oirat and you need to royal marry them. The reason why is twofold. First, you're taking up a diplomatic relations slot, which means they're more likely to ally you in the future, just after you improve relations a little bit. Second, if you don't, they have a nasty habit of no longer allowing you to royal marry them, which means you have to waste a lot more time to get them as an ally, and that's important. After you do that, you need to then improve relations with Uzbek. They will not royal marry you at the beginning, but they will after sufficient improved relations, and they tend not to get anyone else as a real ally, meaning you'll eventually get them too. Now, the reason you want both of them is because, well, either they're hated, they hate Chagatai or hated by Chagatai, and you want to destroy Chagatai. Meaning these two are consistently strong allies because they will always want Chagatai's land on top of their rival situation. Meaning if you can get them, you can snipe Chagatai and eliminate them. So, what is it about Chagatai that you want to get? Simple. It's not even Chagatai, it's Yarkand. Because right here, there is a gold mine. And this gold mine, once it's devved up to 10, will pretty much be your entire economy until about 1500. Once you hit about there, you're going to have a strong enough economy to kind of pay for your army without gold. But until then, you are desperately in need of gold. And this is the easiest way to get it. So what you need to do is try and get both of these guys as your allies, just to punch Chagatai into the dirt. Now, there may be an opportunity here to not get both. The reason why is sometimes Oirat and Uzbek will rival each other. Either they'll start out that way, or they will rival each other before you can get allies, etc. If that happens, you need to choose between the two of them. The thing I will point out, while Oirat is the stronger option because they bring in Mongolia too, meaning they can end up punching Chagatai harder, they will be attacked by Ming. So if you're going to go the Oirat route, make sure Ming has already attacked them, or only ally them and immediately call them in against Chagatai. Do not wait. Because the longer you wait, the more likely Ming is going to fire that fight, and you do not want to be refusing a call to arms with any ally. It'll ruin your opportunity to get other allies, it'll ruin your diplomatic reputation, and it's just not worth it. So pay attention to whether or not Oirat has had to fight Ming already. If they have, go for it. If not, you may want to grab Uzbek instead. But hopefully you'll be able to get both, and it'll be completely academic. Now that all that's been done, we're done talking about diplomacy. Now let's talk about your ruler and military. You see, your ruler here is going to be static when it comes to the monarch point generation and the age. It's going to be fairly static. He's always going to be really old, meaning you have to hurry with the Oirat somewhat. But more importantly, these traits are going to be random. So just check and make sure he's not a guy that has general pips, because if he does, roll a couple of generals to see if you get a good one. But then let's talk about your military. Now, you're going to hire 3 infantry. All 3 right off the bat. Doesn't matter about your force limit, you'll be fine. The reason why is you're going to take your cavalry and you're going to delete him. While you are a step nomad, and that means you get flat land bonuses. So all the stuff right here and over here, you get flat land bonuses in that. You're not expanding in this direction on your own. You'll have Oirat and Uzbek to take on Chagatai, meaning you're probably not even going to fight them at all. Who you're going to have to fight, however, is Kam, Sang, Guj, all these people down here where you're going to get a shock damage penalty because you're using cavalry. So you want to have no cavalry at the start because the first target you're going to have is Kam. After that, you're going to snipe Caradel, who's generally not going to even have an ally. Meaning, you walk up, you wipe him out. And it really should be that simple. Now that all of that's been done, and all of that's been set up, the only thing to talk about is your rivals. Now, you'll start off, and you usually have 1 or 2. Caradel and Kam. You'll have Kam if they rival you. Do not rival anybody. You will rival them right before you declare war. Do not give them any notice that you see them as a target or as a rival before that happens. The reason why is the AI is programmed where if they see you as a rival or you see them as a rival, they're more likely to find more allies. And you are trying to hope Kam here only gets 1 ally or none or maybe at most 2. But I've seen them get 5. I know, it's stupid that they got 5, but they got 5 one time. So don't rival them, and you're going to be attacking them as soon as you possibly can. So it's time to unpause and see what they end up doing. And it looks like I might... Oh, nope, they allied you, which is actually the beneficial one. Oh, and Guj, who does not matter. Now with that, I'm able to declare war, and I'm going to go and try and snipe them. So I'm going to have to pause this and fight this fight. And I will see you guys once this war is done. See you soon. And welcome back, everybody. Kam is, as you can tell, fully occupied, and they have no army left, meaning that they're now willing to peace out. And I didn't have to actually go and siege out their allies. You down here got attacked by Assam, which will usually happen. But generally speaking, you don't actually have to go anywhere else. Just stop them if they send armies, and eventually Kam here will peace out. It doesn't even really take that long, and now you've drastically expanded your territory. Go through there, raise all the provinces. And I mean every single one. You'd rather have monarch power right now than having anything in this land. It's just not going to be helpful to you to have any military or any other kind of development floating around these provinces. So just burn them down. Next, you're going to end up looking at Caradel, see if they have an ally, and if it's Oirats, you're going to have to ally Oirats and drag them into a war with Chagatai and then take out Caradel during it. Or after Sang. And Sang here also has a habit of getting a bunch of allies. So in this case, since Sang has a bunch of allies, and I don't want to be fighting that, I'll instead be aiming to get Chagatai now. So I'm going to look for... It looks like I'm not quite able to get Uzbek yet. But I will try and get Uzbek on my side, get Oirat on my side, and snipe Chagatai before I proceed any further, and then go after Sang. So I'm going to pause the recording while I go ahead and do that. I'll see you guys in just a little bit. And welcome back. As you can tell, the map has somewhat changed because Sang is no longer with us. Now, I wanted to talk about how to fight the Sang War, because I didn't really talk about it before I declared it. And I wanted to explain generally what's going on the map, and then finally what I'm attempting to do. Now, Sang here, when you go to attack them, they're going to be entirely mountains. every single one of their province is a mountain province. Why that matters is because you're going to run into their country and you're going to scorch every single province you can. Yes, this will cause more devastation in the land when you take it, but you're going to be raising it anyway. It's not going to matter. So go ahead, scorch earth on everything. It's worth the military points because you're trying to make every single fight into a defensive fight, so they end up taking the -2 dice rolls. I had a 5-shock general, and when I attacked them offensively, I still lost the fight. So don't assume that just because you have a good general will matter that much. They are still mountain provinces. They still suck. Now, they ended up breaking their alliances, and the reason why is because they'll ally a bunch of people around them, the smaller tags over here. But after they take out you and they take out Gorka, they're going to lose most of them. And then their other ally down here, which was Koch, which is right down here, the 2-province minor, attacked Bengal for some reason and got stomped. So that was why they ended up being an easier target, so I went after them instead of trying to get Uzbek in on Chagatai. Now, Uzbek still will not ally me. They keep flipping between neutral and friendly. Neutral when I'm at peace, friendly when I'm at war, so I can't ally them, but I'm going to try and get them to ally me soon. Oirat I was able to ally. And what happened was an event came up that happens about 95% of the time, and I say that because out of the 50 or so runs I've done to this just to make sure it all works, one time they did not do this. When you're allied to Oirat and Ming is about to attack, in almost every instance, Ming will tell you, since they are a great power, to break your alliance with Oirat. Again, there was one time they did not, and they just attacked them, and I had a call to arms. If you're allied to Oirat and you get that, where you have to break the alliance, go ahead and accept it. The reason why is because, if you notice, I don't have an opinion malice. On top of that, I don't have a trust penalty. They're fine with it because it was not a natural call to arms. If you refuse and then they declare, you will then be forced to take the trust penalty and the opinion malice, meaning you're not going to get Oirats right back when the war is done. Now, after this, I'm going to be trying to get Uzbek on my side anyway, because Chagatai is fighting Oirats, and that would be a good distraction, allowing us to just jump in and try and take them out. But going south is your main priority. There's a couple of reasons why. First, let me go ahead and pull it up. Feudalism exists in Sang, which means if you can snipe them, you don't have to develop anything. It'll be about 60 ducats worth, but you can embrace instantly feudalism without having to do anything, because it'll have just enough development to kick you over. So before you do anything else, before you burn anything down or anything else, embrace feudalism, and you'll be able to start teching up. Hold off on teching up until you're done with Sang, unless you're falling massively behind and you need to in order to beat Sang. Next, once you're done with that, you are aiming for 3 specific provinces down here. First one is Koch. Next one is Tirhut, and next one is right next to it, Champaran. The reason why is these 3 are massively important provinces because they're all grasslands, but they're also good temperate ground. What I mean by that is if you bring up the climate map, all of the provinces I've taken so far are Arctic, except for these ones right here. This is Arctic. All of it is just, it's plus 50% to develop this land. It is garbage land. Meaning, you falling behind on tech is guaranteed unless you can push your way into India. You need to break into this blue barrier. This right here is not Arctic, but it's still highland provinces, so it's not great. So if, worst case scenario, you cannot, for whatever reason, you can't push through Nepal because they have massive allies, or whatever the reason is, you can develop over here, but try and get down here, especially down to Tirhut, because they have a Dai province down here, which means if you dev it up enough, that will be your next economy province, other than the gold mine you're trying to get out of Yarkand. Now that I've said all of that, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording while I now go and try and get Uzbek on my side, try and jump Chagatai, and I will show you generally what you're trying to do between now and a little bit later. So I will see you guys in just a second. Welcome back. So I wanted to talk briefly about one very particular thing, and that's why I'm still paying tribute to Ming. There's 2 reasons. One, the moment you break tributary status, Ming is likely to attack you to get it back. and you really don't want to be dealing with Ming attacking you. So just keep it for now. You're keeping it for about the first 60 or so years. You probably know why. Second, well, to be honest, Ming will fight your rebels for you. If they're separatist rebels, they will generally come into your land and deal with them for you, because it's better for them for you to be a stronger vassal for them. So they have no problem coming in and dealing with separatists, meaning if it's happening, let them come in and deal with it for you. Now, if you have rebels firing, make certain that they're actually sending troops over to deal with it, because if you ignore the rebels, Ming might ignore them too, and suddenly you're losing land when you wouldn't have lost land. So just be aware of it, and don't let yourself be caught off guard. That's the only thing I wanted to say, so I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. And welcome back. As you can tell, Chagatai's kind of having a bad day. Now, what ended up happening is, since they were at war with Oirat ignored Ming entirely and just focused on Chagatai and their army. Their ally Nogai, after me and Uzbek declared on Chagatai, joined in, but they themselves got attacked by Great Horde, meaning they were useless, meaning we were able to just run in and just start smacking them a lot. And then we turned and Uzbek went and smacked Nogai. In fact, if you look at the amount of money I would get in this, yeah, Uzbek definitely did all the heavy lifting. Now, of course, I'm not going to let them have any money, but still. But I'm able to reach through, grab not only the gold mine, but the entire state, give Uzbek up here some land just so they're content, and looks like I can't take anything else, so I'm going to go ahead and piece this out. Oh. And there we go. Now I have my economy situated. All I need to do is dev this up to 10 in Diplo Dev, and that province will be good to go, and I'm able to exclusively focus on the south, making sure I get enough provinces in the south to give me a way to dev up the institutions that I need, but also a future path forward for future expansion. Because again, you're a horde, meaning all these small tags are amazingly and stupidly easy for you just to mop the floor with. So I'm going to go ahead and raise all the other provinces to get myself some mana generated, and core all this up, and move on to focusing on the south. I'll see you guys in a little bit. And welcome back. As you can see, Nepal unfortunately no longer exists, so rip to the country that actually has a really unique flag shape. And as you can also see, I took Tirhut the province, but not the other Tirhut province, so Tirhut the country still exists. So unfortunately they're still around us. Now, this means I can now develop Renaissance and start to catch up on tech. But here's the thing, I'm not actually going to yet. The reason why is now you actually have a choice on what you do in the campaign, because you can choose to stay as Sarig Yogir, or you can form Nepal yourself. All you need to do is make it so your primary culture is Nepali. And here's the thing, since you've been burning all these provinces, there's not a whole lot of dev here. Meaning as long as you can get enough dev in Nepali provinces, you're fine. And the easiest way to do that is to culture convert this province, and this province, the three that you want to dev to keep up on institutions, to Nepali. That's all you really have to do. Now, here's the thing. It's up to you whether or not you do this. The reason why is because the ideas for both Sarig Yogir and for Nepal are both heavy military ideas. Horde, they get aggressive expansion, years of separatism. They also get manpower recovery and a bunch of manpower and a really, really big core creation cost reduction. Whereas Nepal, they get discipline, morale, things like that. So you'll have a harder hitting army as Nepal, but you won't be able to go quite as wide for as cheaply as Sarig Yogir will. The only difference is you'll have to not, for Nepal, be a step Horde. Sarig Yogir, you can stay as one for as long as you want. So pick now what you want to be. If you're going to stay as Sarig Yogir, go ahead and dev Renaissance, it doesn't matter. However, if you want to flip to Nepali, wait until the separatism go down and convert them into Nepali provinces. To point out though, you do not have to religiously convert any provinces in order to culture convert them, as the Tengri faith allows you to syncretic faith them instead, and that will allow you to bypass the religious conversion. So you can convert everybody into yours and do it perfectly fine that way. The last little bit of advice I have is if for some reason there is some Renaissance here, say Tirhut threw some development down, and you raise the province, this does not lower the institution spread, but it will lower the development cost, meaning you'll be able to develop the Renaissance cheaper and keep the progress. This is the same as if you concentrate development. It does not reduce it or even burn and exploit the development. The institution progress remains the same, but the cost goes down. So it's a good way to make certain that you get it as efficiently as possible. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and proceed, and I'm going to show you what you're trying to accomplish by jumping forward into the age of Reformation. So I will see you guys in about 50 years. And welcome to the Age of Reformation. Now, before I continue any further, I do need to disclose two things. First off, this is not the same save game that I was originally recording in. Put simply, this is the save game from the first test run I did as Sarig Yogir, and I had already played to this point. I didn't want to have to play the game for another 70 to 100 years to show you the exact same thing I've already done, so I just loaded the save instead. Now, when I went to load the game, that is when patch 1.33 came out, which is the second disclosure I need to make. Basically, when you change patches, the game can end up becoming incompatible, which means this save file may no longer fully work, so you may see something weird. So if you see something suddenly change, province flips hands, or if there's a really weird thing, that's what's going on. Now that all that's been said, let's talk about what this is. Now, I am Nepal, and I'm not going to talk about the idea or national ideas. You can look those up on the wiki. But there's a couple of things I need to explain in case you choose to form Nepal, which again, I recommend. They have better quality end ideas versus Sarig Yogir playing wide. Now, first off, if you're going to form Nepal, before you go into China, you need to end up accepting Nepali as your primary culture. The reason why is there's a lot of dev over here that's going to throw your numbers way off. So you need to end up deving these two as Nepali provinces, or at least culture converting them after you dev. I ended up deving this one and then culture converting, and then in the other direction here, this one ended up costing 300 Diplo points to culture convert and took 20 years. This one took 100 and took like 5. So you're going to be spending a lot longer if you dev it first, but in my instance, I was so far behind in tech, I really needed that institution before I continued further, so I had to dev it first. So play it by ear. 200 Diplo and waiting 15 years is not that important. Now, do not form Nepal this early. I'll say it again. Do not form Nepal this early. The reason why is in order to form Nepal, you have to flip out of the steppe horde government. Now, whenever you start as Sarig Yogir, you start off in the Nomad Tech Group, which, if you're not aware, is pretty much the strongest tech group at the start of the game. You have every military pip advantage, especially with cavalry, which means you're going to dominate most other people. Now, that really starts falling off around tech 12 to 16, which means I did it really early. It's up to you when you choose to, but I would recommend waiting. Now, when you get out of the steppe horde group, the government, so you end up forming, in this case, I went republic, or you can go monarchy or theocracy at the end of the reform tree. You will then change your tech group, as you can see here, based on what your syncretic faith is. Now, you can end up becoming into the Eastern group, the Muslim group, or, in this case, the Chinese group. And it's depending on your syncretic faith. If your syncretic faith is Orthodox, you are in the Eastern group. If it is Sunni, you are in the Muslim group. And if it's any of these religions, including no syncretic faith, or animist, or anything else, you will end up becoming Chinese tech group. This is very important to realize. The Orthodox unit group has more pips than the other two. Now, between Muslim and Chinese, they have the same number of pips, but they are different in their distribution. Basically, the Chinese will have 4 fire, defense, and offense pips, and 3 in everything else. Muslim will have 3 in everything except for 4 in morale, offense, and defense. So the Chinese group is going to be better with causing casualties and taking less casualties, whereas the Muslim group will be better at winning fights with morale. So simply choose which direction you think you would probably prefer and go down that path, because generally speaking they're the same with slightly different focuses. But I wanted to point that out just in case you guys went down a path and then realized you didn't want to go down it. Now, let's talk about the general strategy of what you're trying to accomplish. Simply put, you are waiting until the Age of Reformation to make Ming mad. You are remaining their tributary until you hit about 270 development, which you want to hit at approximately the time when colonialism spawns. The reason why you want to hit it then is because at that point is when Ming generally breaks the tributary status with you. They see you as too large of a threat on their border and want to conquer you instead. The reason why this is amusing is because since you're at 270 and colonialism just spawned, you're deving this up to about 35, which means since it was about 5 beforehand, you're getting 30 more, which will make you a steppe horde with 300 development on their border. You're triggering the unguarded nomadic frontier disaster, which you can see I triggered in here. In here. This will tank their mandate. They ended up losing 20 mandate. They end up losing 15% morale of armies. Their subjects gain liberty desire. It's a disaster that lasts a while. However, you're trying to time this to exactly when the Age of Reformation starts. Here's the thing. It will tick up 1% every month. The unguarded nomadic frontier, which means if you can get it to start approximately within a year or two of colonialism firing and spawning, you're able to immediately cause it to start ticking, which means it will fire just before the Age of Reformation, and this is important. Once the Age of Reformation hits, there's another disaster that can hit Ming, and that is the Crisis in the Ming Dynasty disaster. This is the one that ends up spawning all the rebels and causing the Ming explosion. Now, why is this important? Unguarded nomadic frontier will not progress if Ming is in a disaster. Crisis in the Ming Dynasty will proceed regardless if Ming is in a disaster. So if you can fire unguarded nomadic frontier, in a few months Age of Reformation hits, and then the unguarded nomadic frontier tanks their mandate, so it starts ticking the Crisis in the Ming Dynasty, and then that fires, they will have liberty desiring subjects, with subjects spitting out of them. They will have morale of armies being tanked, in addition to their mandate massively tanking, meaning they end up with increased fire and shock damage being received, increased unrest, lower manpower, both mercenary and their own, as well as lower goods produced so they have no money, which means they can't fight all the rebels that are spawning, so tags are going to be spitting out of them left and right, and you're the horde sitting next to them, getting free claims by event and able to run in and take people out. All of this land right here was one war. Dali here was their subject, but they're about to get their independence because Ming can't stop it. These two right here, they have no real way of stopping me, and they're going to be the next targets. Then you have Shun, who I ended up taking out myself up here. Sorry, I ended up taking 2 provinces, I believe, from Shun. And that's generally what you're trying to do. You're using these 2 disasters at the right timing to make Ming explode in truly grand fashion, because there's nothing they can do. And then at that point, Oirat jumps in, Manchu jumps in, and you finish Ming off, and you're able to use your horde status to start pushing through and establishing yourself a main base here, and then secure here, and then you can expand into Southeast Asia, India, and the nomads on a rotating basis because they have different culture groups and different religious groups. The Hindus are not going to care what you're doing to the Sunnis. We're not going to care what you're doing to the Theravadins. And again, the culture groups, they're really not going to care what you're doing to anybody because they're so drastically different and so far away. Meaning, you have a free hand to take over all of Asia and form Yuan if you really want to. And this is what you're starting to do as little old Sarig Yogir right here. And that's basically what you're trying to do. You're trying to get yourself first a strong enough place to secure yourself in the land of the Uyghurs and the land of Tibet, especially with this gold mine up here, so that you could afford an army to come in here and punish China for the crimes that they want to commit in the distant future. And you will punish them severely. I hope this helps you guys out. I hope you guys have fun with this because it is absolutely a fun game to play, because you go from by far one of the worst tags in the game to by far one of the funnest ones, and it's a horde, which is always fun. If you guys like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'll definitely be making more of it. If you want to see a specific country or mechanic, let me know in a comment below. I'm definitely looking for ideas, and as this guide points out, I definitely follow it if you ask enough. And with that, thank you guys for watching. And again, if you have any capacity to help Ukraine, please do so in a link below. I'm sure they would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. The world would appreciate it. Having less people have to suffer due to a war. And with all of that being said, have a great day.